but the smaller you keep it screen-wise, you have a higher definition. So I thought, oh golly gosh, what can I do? And I came up with the idea of,
I get it now.
Yeah, you see, and that's why you have like the rubbish tip, you know, the dump. I don't know what do Americans call the place where you take your rubbish? I don't know, amenity tip or something.
A garbage dump.
A garbage dump.
So a landfill.
That's why you have the scene with the garbage dump with the television screens, and that was really funny because I went there, and it's owned by the local council. I went there with the camera, which was not a big camera. And I got out of the car and I saw all the TVs. I thought, that's brilliant. I could just shoot all the TVs. And then, of course, you superimpose the image on top of them. And this guy came up and said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, well, I want to film some TVs in a cage. Why? I'm making a film. Why? You know, so you had to go. And he wanted me to sign a piece of paper to do it. I thought, oh, fuck off. I'm not doing that. and anyway, we had this little bit of a row. And eventually he allowed me to do it. And then I thought, I'm not doing this again. Where else can I go? I'll go down the beach. And that's where the line, you may wish to go somewhere quiet to discuss this or something like that came from. So Dina and I, God bless her, I said, right, love, we're gonna go down the beach this morning. Oh, goody. And grabbed everyone's computer screen that I could grab hold of, and phones and things like that, small phones, and did it. And I didn't have enough. You'll see them repeated, unfortunately, and just dumped them in the sand. And got a nice shot of some people on the beach, and that's where that idea came from. But it was purely to keep the picture of YouTube footage small, so it looked okay on the screen, and you were distracted by the sand and the sunshine and all that crap. You know, it was a cheat, really.
Hey, it was a good cheat. I wasn't sure what it was about, and I thought that must have been a lot of work to carry all that stuff out there. But that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it was. We got away with it, I think, just. But no genius there, I'm afraid.
Well, we'll agree to disagree there, and I may have to steal that technique in the future if I need to.
Carry on. I wouldn't bother.
So my next question for you is about the future. We're 6 months away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah.
I sense a lot of interest and momentum picking up. I want to know, going forward, you know, you and I are coming from different generations, different backgrounds, different countries. I want to hear your perspective on the continued journey of 9/11 truth and justice and these issues. What do you think needs to happen? What is your vision for the future? What is Tony Rooke's utopia of, 9/11 truth and justice?
Tony Rooke's utopia has got nothing to do with 9/11 truth and justice. It's just a pub where I own everything. No, I will maintain my opinion of when I made the film, that I've never believed that we have to convert or have to achieve what they call critical mass, Julia. You know, everyone says, oh, when we achieve critical mass, and that's societal seesaw has to be tipped. Yeah, everyone believes in what we believe, and I'd never believed that. I don't think that's necessary. I've always believed, that's why I made the film, is if you can change the opinion of, and it may even just be one police station or one police department in America or in England or wherever it may be in the world, if you can just change enough souls, brave souls in those places to turn around and say, screw this is bullshit, we're gonna go on strike, or we're gonna stand outside our police station, one person an hour, holding a banner, and just get that media attention, then I think things can change. I mean, in England, you may have seen it on the web or even on the TV. We had lots and lots of people marching down to Trafalgar Square, a big monument in central London. You've been here. 40,000 people, 45,000 people. Nothing compared to the march we had against the invasion of Iraq, which was 1.5 million.
Wow.
Which never changed anything, by the way. Never changed anything. Pardon me. And excuse me. And I've spoken to the coordinators of that and told them, I think, well, with all due respect, I think you're wasting your time. I think what you need is maybe 45,000 people in a town like where I live, in a town called Chichester in the south of England, with a population of 40,000 people. Double that population, bring in 40,000 people from outside, march silently through the town and hold banners for Building 7 on it, because nobody knows about it. There is no point in going to, this is a crude analogy, there is no, I'm trying to think of an appropriate American serial killer, God knows I know enough. There's no point in going to, who was the guy who had all the people under his house? Shawcross, was it? Shawcross. There's no point in going to a serial killer's house and arresting him for one missing person, when if you looked in his back garden and dug underneath the garden, you'd find a dozen. The thing, what we've got now is with current governments, if we don't trust the COVID narrative, which I don't personally, if you're going to try and pull them up on that, try to apprehend them on that, then that's okay, that's one thing. But we need to look a little bit deeper into their past. They're not particularly worried about this. We can't prove where the virus came from. I think we know, we're told it came from a laboratory in Wuhan and all this kind of thing. But we certainly know who's going to profit from it. We certainly know, we don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine, for example. And I think it is linked to 9/11. I think because we didn't stop 9/11, I now think COVID has happened. I think there is a link. I can't prove it. I think there's a link. I honestly think there's a link. I think there's a link if you go back to which I show in the film, if you go back to 1962, when the American intelligence services wanted to bomb Washington, Florida, blah, 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 called Operation Northwoods, because they wanted to invade Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah, achieve some political aims there. John F. Kennedy said, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's terrible. You can't do it. Bang, he's dead a year later. And then you look at things like Operation Gladio in Europe, where similar things happened, where they're trying to affect political influence. And then I think what's happening now, it's not so much to affect political influence, but it is to make an awful lot of money, and any other aims that they have. I won't go into those. 9/11 is just a part of that. It's a very big part of that, and the most obvious part of that. But the thing about 9/11, if there's a good thing about 9/11, there isn't. We can prove 9/11 now. We can prove 9/11 with the Alaskan report, the University of Alaska, that came out last year.
Yes, Dr. Halsey's report.
So much stuff. The governments that are governing us now are totally illegitimate. They shouldn't even be in charge of COVID. They shouldn't, then they shouldn't be there. These people are covering stuff up, and this stuff needs to be uncovered. And that's what they're truly worried about. They're not particularly worried about us finding a germ that escaped somewhere in China, because we're not going to be able to find that. We need to be able to pin them down on stuff that is demonstrably false, which is 9/11. In England, we had something called 7/7 back in 2005. Now, when that story was presented to a court in 2011, there was a trial of a filmmaker, a friend of mine called John Anthony Hill, who made a film asserting that
Is that Ripple Effect?
Yeah, 7/7 Ripple Effect.
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Well, I mean, 7/7 Ripple Effect is a. What happened was, I just sort of distill this very quickly. Yeah. John made a film called 7/7 Ripple Effect, asserting that the London bombings were done by the British government to create a sea change in British opinion, so we would then go and invade parts of the Middle East. And for doing that, what happened was the BBC saw that it was having an influence on the internet, and the BBC made a program which cost a lot of money. It must have cost hundreds of thousands of pounds of license payers' money, which I was talking about earlier on. and said, "Oh no, you can't do that." And he got arrested and he got put in prison and put on trial. He sent copies of his film to a judge and jury trial linked to the 7/7 bombings.
Yes, I remember now.
Yeah.
And they said that it was a perversion of justice or something.
He was attempting to pervert the course of justice by sending it to a trial of these 3 Muslim gentlemen who were alleged conspirators with the alleged London bombers. Of course, the London bombers were never tried because they all died. And anyway, so poor old John was stuck in prison for a long time. When he was put on trial, the BBC, having made this program about him, saying what a terrible man he was, and smeared him. I think 3 million people here watched the program. When the jury saw his film, they said, "No, not guilty, not guilty." And the BBC took over a month before they even put that verdict on their website, where you'd never read it. It was on an obscure page in the middle of nowhere. And the British press completely ignored it. That was one of the most important verdicts in British legal history, and yet no one knows about it. I mean, I know about it, and I make a lot of noise about it whenever I can, but it's unheard of. Nobody knows that a British jury did not believe the official version of the London bombings. That's extremely important. How many people know about? I had an hour meeting with the district commander, the highest ranking police officer in my town, with a guy called Matt Campbell, who lost his brother in the North Tower on 9/11. This woman.
Oh, Matt Campbell. Mm-hmm.
You've met Matt Campbell?
I haven't, but I watched the extras of Incontrovertible. His brother Jeff.
Matt. Yeah, Matt's a lovely guy. Yeah, he'd love to talk to you. And we showed her Building 7. This is the highest ranking police officer in our town. She'd never seen Building 7. This was in 2013. That's what you're dealing with. They don't know because the media doesn't tell them. And so this is why we know it's suspicious. But in British law and in American law, I'm sure, if you have reasonable cause to suspect you are funding the purposes of terrorism, then you don't pay. Which I don't pay my taxes anymore. And I don't get any trouble about it either. Amazingly.
Wow.
I make a lot of money, but we don't get any trouble because they don't want to argue it in court. Now, if everybody did it, that would be interesting.
I think people are scared. I was scared for a really long time to speak out about anything. I mean, I remember even when I was confused about things with, 9/11 when I was in high school, or then the wars, or then this law, or like the Patriot Act and everything that happened in the NSA. And I remember, the TSA over here, the people who check you before you go on the airplanes and everything. I felt like whether it was my friends or family, because that's really all I knew, I grew increasingly aware that I was going to be one of those people that people wouldn't want to listen to or not take seriously because, you couldn't really talk about anything other than the official narrative of 9/11 shortly after 9/11, because George Bush preempted everything saying, we must never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories, which pretty much just, he said, it's like, well, if you disagree with us in any way, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
and then
terrorists.
And that narrative has been propagated by the mainstream media endlessly, but it's so fascinating because they don't have the evidence. They say we're psychotic. They say, like Mary Revelle in Incontrovertible, the former police officer, talked about how a colleague was sent for a psych eval, and then people would threaten that maybe they would take away his ability to carry a firearm. Like, your livelihood is threatened. And personally, I am still scared every day that I do this work, every day that I post a graphic, every day getting
scared. Don't be scared.
I feel like it's a hard when people look at you as a conspiracy theorist, when really my interest in 9/11 is like the overwhelming historical inconsistencies with what should have happened, like the United States not protecting us in any way. And then, of course, things like Building 7, and then looking at the research of AE, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Mhm.
I know the evidence is there, but it's hard to be willing to put my face out there and say, yeah, I fully understand that the Twin Towers were blown up after they were hit by aircraft, and I fully understand that World Trade Center 7 was a controlled demolition. And, you know, I say that, and then I think, well, am I ever going to be able to get a job that I want, or X job, or this, or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean, and it is a little bit scary. But I mean, just from the little thing I did with the court case, it's actually very liberating to do that, and you'll be surprised at how many people would turn around and say, you know, like you've been doing your blog now, I don't know, probably not for very long, but
just since June.
Yeah, I mean, you got Chris Joyer to talk to you. You'll be amazed at how many people are sympathetic and will say, yeah, I'll talk to you, you know, because they want the airspace, they want that, you know, that atmosphere where they can breathe and discuss things. I wouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, and I think now, 20 years on, oh gosh, 20 years on, I actually think the authorities have got a lot more to worry about than you and me, to be quite honest. They've got the grand jury thing that's looming in on them, which they're trying to fend off, which Chris has no doubt told you about.
Yes.
And Architects and Engineers, they've got lots of things that they need to worry about. They probably don't have a lot of the players that were in force at the time of 9/11. Maybe some of them have died. Maybe some of them, I don't know what's happened to them. They made a mistake on 9/11. They always make a mistake. Building 7 was not meant to happen. Building 7 should have gone down in the morning with the Twin Towers. If that had happened, they probably could have batted away an awful lot of the stuff. Can you still hear me? You're frozen.
Yes.
Oh, you have, yeah.
I hear you.
The same thing with the London bombings. The train that the 4 guys were meant to have caught into London never ran. It was cancelled. So they couldn't have been on the train. The Metropolitan Police, you know, the biggest police force in England, didn't know that. You know, right, okay, I believe you. Then all of a sudden, all the CCTV on the London Underground failed, so they couldn't see them on the train. These things happen. You can call it divine providence. You can call it whatever you want. These people have things to worry about. They can't go around killing all of us. It doesn't work like that. There's probably some key players that get bumped off, or whatever. They have to rely on the media. The media is the key. If we can get rid of the media, well, the media is one of the keys. I think the major key, and I've always said so, is why I made the film, is the police. And I don't understand, Julia, I'll be quite honest, I don't understand why a lot of 9/11 people crap on about, and I see it on Facebook every day, you know, they're saying, oh, you know, this thing about the tower, or that thing about the tower, or this, and then. Listen, we know it was an inside job. We've got the Alaskan report. We've got all the evidence we need. Get it to your police. Even if you have to form a group of 40 people and take it down to your local police department.